Hello, peeps. Well, the people voted, and after Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, this was the next game. Turtles 1989 arcade, playing on the Xbox 360. As you can see, there's not a lot you can adjust in the settings. Uh, Mainly your sound, and you can also adjust the aspect ratio in the game. I think there's more you can change in multiplayer co-op settings, but in single player, like, it's just straight up, like, jumping into the arcade. Yeah. Here we go. Now, I'm not thrilled to be playing with the Xbox 360 controller. I don't like Xbox controllers. I know that just made someone be like, boo, unsubscribed. But I don't like the offset sticks. I think that wore out its welcome in Generation 6. I think this D-pad sucks. I don't think the buttons are good for this kind of game, especially. Like, it's fine. This controller's fine for, like, Halo 3, Gears of War, and, you know, games that play like those, but otherwise, I'm not a fan. So, I also do have the Cowabunga collection on Switch, but I don't have a way to capture footage from a Switch. And before you ask, but why? I don't have any capture cards that can handle HDMI or components, so there you go. But for those who don't know, this was delisted from the Xbox Live Arcade, and I think it was also on PlayStation Network. Ubisoft lost the license. So, of course, they weren't making any more Turtles games, but then this fell victim to that. And it's one of those things I always found perplexing. It's like, you know, that shouldn't stop this game from existing digitally. Like, you know, whatever money it makes would then go to the new rights holders. But, like, whatever. It's just, when I first got into Xbox Live Arcade, like when the first games became available digitally, you know, it never crossed my mind that we would have, like, digital scarcity. Like, oh, come on. I didn't want to lose a life on Rocksteady. He needed one more hit, come on. I mean, I'm gonna get my ass kicked here. Like, there's no getting around it. But I at least wanted to finish the first level with some dignity and not spending a virtual quarter. But yeah, that's the thing is that... Oh, that's new. When you have, like, direct arcade conversions like this, or ports, I should say, because, like, it's not been rebalanced for home play. Like, they just took the arcade ROM and dumped it into some emulation software and called it a day. Well, and added the online capabilities. That was, I think that was pretty much the extent of what was modified. As it begs the question, and I think this is something maybe we can have a friendly discussion about in the comments, is, like, you know, obviously if you put one quarter in and finish the game and you never had to put another quarter in, either a real one or a virtual one in this case, then, like, yeah, there's no disputing that you beat the game, like, but it gets a little murkier, because it's kind of like, even if you suck at the game and have no skill in it whatsoever, if you have enough quarters, you can, like, brute force your way into winning. So it's like, is that kind of like pay to win? It's kind of like, you know, aside from any satisfaction you got from getting good at the game and, like, learning how it works and all the tricks. It seems like often in the arcade, your reward would just as much be like getting good. Like, your reward was you got to go home with more quarters. And now, of course, you could go by NES rules to be like, okay, you know, they give you 3 lives, and then what, 3 continues on NES? So that's what? 9 lives, plus you can earn some more lives with your score, so maybe it's like, you could also say pretty confidently that, like, if you, as long as you don't lose any more than 9 lives, then it's safe to say you conquered the game pretty well, but... But this is a good, like, in many ways, this is a good... Oh, jeez. Like, transfer of the arcade to the home. Like, it looks good, it sounds good, but... I think the emulation... It does have a bit of a floaty feel. It's not, like... a massive amount of input lag, but, like, if you come straight from Genesis or Super Nintendo or NES Turtles to this, like, you notice, like, how much crispier and more responsive the controls are and, on that hardware. Versus the software emulation. I just think it's too bad that, there hasn't been, like, a source port of this. Like, I think the NES, I mean, I don't know exactly, I assume maybe they were able to use some assets in code from the arcade ROM, but I figure that probably had to, for the most part, have been programmed from, and coded from scratch. Like, or from the ground up, we should say. But it really makes such a difference. I know some people, you probably wouldn't notice it, especially if you haven't played anything but this. But, yeah, when the game's running natively on its home hardware, it does make such a difference. It feels kind of like it's a lost art in a way. Like, I mean, we still get source ports, but it seems like that's more of a rarity. That used to be more of a standard practice, is like, you know, a game brought to a new piece of hardware, whether a home computer or console, would usually be a source port, or would be rebuilt from the ground up. And now the common practice seems to be, well, just dump it in an emulator and call it a day. I know that's the cheap way to do it, that's the quick way to do it, I know. If the source code is lost, or if it's like... if there's, like, way too much of a gap between... what the game originally ran on versus what you're trying to get it to run on now, like, sometimes using emulation software is the only practical solution, but... I just think it's a shame that that seems to be more, like, what companies resort to now, and it's like... Even in Konami's case, with the Cowabunga collection, they... by my understanding, they didn't even really have the know-how or whatever to even run their own emulator. I think they had to use, from what I understand, like a fan community emulation software to get those games running as well as they do run on Switch and the other systems you can get that collection for. Oh, come on, Baxter, get over. Feels like Konami, like, talk about falling far from grace, you know, it's like, they used to have some of the most talented artists and programmers in the industry, and now it seems like they can't even do anything on their own. They have to, like, outsource everything. Oh, I just touched that Mouser, come on. They're even more ridiculous than on home versions. How many lives have I lost already? 5? 6? Like, I'm already... This isn't going especially well, but... Believe it or not, it is going slightly better than my previous try that I filmed, like... Oh my gosh, yeah. Really? Y'all are just like... That was so cute. I have no one but myself to blame. Sorry, Raph. We'll let you cool off in the bathtub after... You guys with your spears, seriously. Yeah, the other thing is, you know, having spent so much of my childhood playing the NES port of this, you can call it a demake if you want, I guess, whatever, but... Like, so much of my muscle memory is tied to how that game performs. Like, honestly, even though it has a major graphical downgrade and there's way less animation, in some ways, less animation is kind of beneficial in that there's less ambiguity with your attacks. Like, because you only have 2 buttons, jump and attack, and on NES, like, I know exactly what I'm gonna get when I combine my buttons. Like, if I jump and hit attack, I know I'm always gonna do the downward jump kick, whereas here, it seems like it's almost like context sensitive, or like, I guess based on what frame of the animation you're in. Where it's like... Maybe I'll demonstrate it when I'm not fighting a boss, how's that? Cripes, cripes, cripes. Leo, you're up. Yeah, there's like 3 different attacks that you'll end up doing, like... There's like a, more of a horizontal jumping kick. Then there's, you know, the downward kick that we're all used to. Then there's like the reverse rising attack. You're doing it on the way down instead of the way up. And it's floaty and slow, and it's like... And sometimes that is useful, but most of the time I don't want to do that. I just want to do my jump kick. It leaves you very vulnerable to attack. It also causes you to not be as far to the other side of an enemy as I would want to be. Like, sometimes I use the jump kick not to attack, but just to put distance between myself and an enemy. Here it's like, yeah, but if the game decides that I don't get to do the attack that I want to do, it kind of screws me over. It's like, if you're gonna do it that way, like, it either... I mean, basically they did fix it, like, in Turtles in Time, where, like, there are different kinds of attacks you can do in the air, but it's much more precise. Like, it's much easier to tell, like, when you're gonna launch a particular kind of attack in the air. Whereas here, sometimes it feels kind of like luck. And again, part of it, to be fair, might be, again, somewhat of the floatiness of the emulation, and also this controller, again, just not being well suited to this. Like, if I had a good arcade joystick, I think that would help mitigate that to an extent. When I can afford to buy anything at all for the game room, especially hardware, I would like to get a good arcade stick for the Xbox 360. Also, to be fair, I mean, yes, this was an arcade game. It was meant to be a quarter muncher, but it was also, I think, balanced around having at least one other person to play with. And, you know, one of my fondest memories of this version is, you know, I did get to play an epic 4-player co-op session where we did beat the game, and there was no doubting that we did, because in the online multiplayer, you do have a limited pool of lives to share among all the players, so you have to make it count. You can't add more lives. And we made it, all 4 of us made it almost to the end as a team. Like, I think we lost 2 people on Krang, and then on Shredder, the other person went down, so it came down to me to win the day. It's like, talk about pressure, but made it happen, and that was such a great feeling. Like, I do wish that was something we could have recorded, because that was pretty sweet. Like, dang, it's vicious. Like, for me, nothing can replace the arcade or local co-op. You know, I know, obviously, online multiplayer is still all the rage, and... Dang, wow, that is brutal. I know for some people, like, that's unthinkable to not have online multiplayer, and that's like... That's just how you play with other people. Like, there's no other concept of that, but... I tell you, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, the magic of being in the arcade, especially if you got someone or someones doing really well, which I'm not, but... and you start to get a crowd around them, and, like, you know, you're all, like, collectively... That is brutally unfair. Retro lesson of the day. Never get too far ahead of these helicopters. They're bombing us. I was at least much better. How many years ago was that now? Jeez, that was like 6 years ago, I think, when we did that session. I don't even know if multiplayer is still supported in this in any way. I don't remember if it was peer-to-peer or if it was in any way server-based, but... But even if you have just one other person, it is a lot easier, 'cause you can have one person, especially if they're playing as, like, Leo or Don, kind of harassing them with their slightly longer range normal attack, and, like, drawing the aggro, and then the other character can do more hit and run, like jump attacks. And you can bail each other out if you're getting ganged up on. Like, oh. Yay. Could you just die? Thank you. I'm hitting the buttons. I'm hitting the buttons. Oh, come on. What is going on? I mean, I know I'm being a bit of an imbecile, but... Oh, this guy. And he's so much faster in the home version. This is usually where the game turns from a game into a slaughter. I'm pretty sure we're done. We're way well past where I would have lost all my lives and continues on NES. I know I spend a lot of time comparing this to the Nintendo version, but again, you know, so much of my childhood is in that. It's so hard to, like, unlearn my tactics, because I'm like... Oh my gosh. But I must, because I'm getting slaughtered. Well, that was working for a second. It's like whatever you try to do, it's punished with a vengeance. Ugh. Yeah, take that. Big explosions. So huge.
Thank you, my turtles.
Oh, you're welcome, Master Splinter.
There it is.
But going back to the whole thing about, like, that this never got, like an arcade-accurate source port. Like, you talk about missed opportunities, like, the Saturn would have been amazing for this, right? Because a lot is said about missed opportunities with the Saturn and, like, what of Sega's own games should have been brought to home. But I think, like, with third-party games like this, that's another huge missed opportunity. Like, maybe it wouldn't have mattered that much in Japan, but in the US and UK and probably most of Europe, I think, or at least Western Europe, this would have been a huge hit. Like, an arcade-perfect Turtles on a home system. Jerk. And it could have had 4-player support with the multi-tap. Oh, that is so cruel. This game, I swear. Come on, I should have at least gotten past the bowling balls. Yeah, I mean, the N64 probably could have done it as well. I'm just not sure. I don't remember what the maximum cartridge size was for N64. So I don't know if they would still have had to make some concessions with the sound. But yeah, imagine this, like, on Saturn with 4-player support. Like, that would have sold some systems. And then if, you know, Sega had cozied up to Konami and maybe given them a sweet licensing deal, could have also gotten, like, X-Men Arcade and Simpsons Arcade. You know, because those got delisted as well from Xbox Live Arcade. And I never got a chance to grab... I mean, I technically did have a chance to grab those, but it was like... Again, I didn't have a concept of, like... You know, why should there be scarcity and rarity with digital games? Like, you know, why should these ever get delisted? But sure enough, they did, and it's like, when they were first made available, it was kind of like, I just wasn't in the mood to play those. And I was like, you know, I don't want to spend the money if I'm not even wanting to play them yet. So I'll wait, and by the time I got back around to them, I was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I'll recruit some friends, and we'll have a great time. But delisted. So there's no legal way to get them anymore, and that's ridiculous. And that makes it hurt even more that we never got a port to, like, Saturn, or even, like, Genesis, or Super Nintendo, or anything. I'm just getting annihilated. Oh, come on, I was... This is just soul-crushingly hard. Yeah. I think Krang is the only boss that might just be slightly easier than he is on NES because he has such a massive hitbox, and his counterattacks don't seem to be... They're still vicious, but they don't seem to be as ridiculously on point as on the Nintendo version. So. Rice. Yeah, so much for, you know, the confidence I had going into this film project was, you know, coming off of Turtles in Time, like, yeah, I beat it on hard for the first time without having to use a continue, like, I've leveled up as a Turtles player, and I'm like... And then I'm getting my ass handed to me on a platter. Along with my pride and dignity. As... for dessert. You know, I would like to think that I could do slightly better with a better controller, but... I mean, I could practice more, like... Given enough time, I could maybe, like, override some of the years and years of muscle memory I built up playing, you know, the NES port of this. Right. Alright, Raph. You're up. It's just sad. Oh, shut up, Krang. Okay, going back to the pet shop shredder. Ugh. Ah. And he can turn with his anti-mutagen ray. Like, before I started filming this, I didn't even know he could do that. It's like, I thought he was always committed to one direction. Like, nope. It's just demoralizing. I've lost, what, 30 lives? Like, I've lost a Konami code's worth of lives, I think. Take that, Shredder. This weren't my finest hour. But, there you go. Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. Yeah. I actually have a bag of quarters over there. I'm pretty sure I would have gone through all of them if this were real. But even with the pain and suffering, if I ever had a chance to own at least one arcade cabinet, it would be this one. Like, I mean, as much as I would love to have something like Outrun or Galaxy Force 2 or Afterburner or Daytona or anything like that, like, that cabinet represents so much of my childhood, and I would adore having it, so. Let's enjoy some of the music. I can appreciate, again, like, Konami's team in the 80s and 90s, like, considering the huge gap of hardware between the arcade cabinet and the NES, like, how well they transferred the gameplay, and especially the music, like, it carried over so well. Yeah! That's the screen we saw a lot. Let's see if I can do this without that. Nope. Like, there's even a slight floaty input lag with putting my letters in. Ugh. I'm not sure if I earned that. Alright, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed that and had fun watching me suffer. But I do love this game, regardless of my complaining, and I am grateful that I do at least have access to it in this version, and then, of course, on the Cowabunga collection. And also, for those who were curious, I should have mentioned this at the very beginning, but this wallpaper I'm using, that is the decal, skin, whatever you want to call it, for the Turtles pinball game, which is, out of all the pinball games that I've played, personally, the Turtles one's my absolute favorite, and I think the art is fantastic, so, you know, fortunately you can't see all of it, but I want to use that as a special background for today. So again, thanks for watching. Be excellent to each other. Party on. May the peace of power guide you. Laters.